On London's prestigious Bond Street, Victoria Pemberton's McLaren P1, worth $2 million, died, with a mechanical wheeze outside Claridge's. The billionaire heiress descended furiously as James, a mechanic in oil-stained overalls, approached the smoking bonnet. "Don't you dare touch my car," she screamed. But he ignored the order, dove under the bonnet, and in 30 seconds, the V8 roared back to life. When he stood up, hands black with grease, Victoria mockingly declared, "If you can truly fix it permanently, I'll marry you." James's smile chilled her. "Deal accepted, miss, but you don't know who I really am." The April sun cast a golden glow over Bond Street, making the luxury boutiques shimmer like jewels in London's crown. The spring air carried hints of expensive perfume and fresh flowers from the nearby florists, mixing with the subtle exhaust notes of supercars that frequented this playground of the ultra-wealthy. Victoria Pemberton embodied everything this street represented. At 28, she was the epitome of British aristocratic beauty merged with modern business acumen. Heir to the Pemberton Group, a $5 billion empire spanning from luxury hotels to private aviation, she navigated this golden world with the confidence of someone who'd never known failure. That morning, she wore a bespoke Alexander McQueen suit in cream silk that followed her statuesque frame perfectly, Manolo Blahnik heels that clicked authoritatively on the pavement, and that distant smile that kept the world at a respectable distance. Her honey-blonde hair, styled in a sleek low bun, framed a face of classical features dominated by ice-blue eyes, the same eyes that had made grown CEOs stumble during board meetings. The McLaren P1 in volcano orange wasn't just a car, it was a statement. 2 million pounds of British engineering excellence, one of only 375 in the world. The pinnacle of automotive achievement. For Victoria, it represented everything she stood for. Exclusive, unattainable, perfect, until perfection shattered. The first sign was a subtle hiccup from the twin-turbo V8, so faint that a less attentive driver might have missed it. Then came an unusual vibration through the carbon fiber chassis, followed by an amber warning light on the futuristic dashboard. Finally, as she prepared to pull away from the traffic lights, catastrophe struck. White smoke billowed from the rear bonnet, accompanied by a mechanical death rattle that froze Victoria's blood. The McLaren died precisely in front of Claridge's entrance, under the horrified gazes of uniformed doormen and wealthy patrons. Smartphones rose instantly. The Instagram generation never missed an opportunity to capture the fall of an icon. Victoria emerged from the vehicle with all the dignity she could muster, but internally, panic was rising. This wasn't just a breakdown, it was public humiliation. In her world, image was everything, and hers had just cracked in front of London's elite. James Mitchell chose that precise moment to emerge from Sterling Motors, tucked away in a mews off Bond Street. The contrast was striking. Where the main street breathed ostentatious luxury, this little lane retained working-class authenticity, with its modest shops and less gleaming buildings. At 32, James bore the marks of a life dedicated to manual labor. His hands, though clean, carried permanent calluses that spoke of real work. His navy overalls, faded from countless washes, bore the discreet logo of the garage and some oil stains that refused to fade, badges of honor for a true craftsman. But it was his face that intrigued. Beneath the 3-day stubble and tousled brown hair, his features revealed unexpected refinement. His hazel eyes sparkled with sharp intelligence, and his gait had that quiet confidence of someone who knew their worth without needing to proclaim it. The growing crowd around the McLaren caught his attention. His trained ear immediately identified the problem from the dying engine's sound, that particular combination of whistles and clicks that betrayed an imbalance in the hybrid system, a rare but not unknown issue on this model. He approached, cutting through the crowd of onlookers with natural authority. Disdainful looks slid over him. A mechanic among millionaires, a grease stain in this perfect tableau. But James paid no attention, fascinated by the mechanical beauty in distress. Victoria was on the phone, her crystalline voice cutting through the air. "No, I cannot wait 2 hours. I have the Japanese delegation in 45 minutes. What do you mean all your technicians are busy?" The Claridge's concierge, in his impeccable uniform with golden buttons, attempted to manage the situation with 5-star professionalism. He'd already contacted the official McLaren service. 2 hours minimum before a technician could arrive, they'd said. Unacceptable for Miss Pemberton. That's when Victoria saw this man in work overalls approaching her car. The audacity stunned her. How dare he? This McLaren was worth more than he'd earn in several lifetimes. "Don't touch that car!" Her voice cut through the air like an ice whip. "Step away immediately!" But James continued his approach, unperturbed. Something in his gaze, a quiet determination mixed with a hint of amusement, unsettled Victoria. He opened the rear bonnet with the assurance of someone who'd repeated this gesture 1,000 times. "I said step away." Victoria advanced, her designer heels clicking on the tarmac like a declaration of war. "This car is worth £2 million, more than you'll see in your entire miserable—" She stopped, stunned. James's hands moved through the engine compartment with unexpected grace, surgical precision. In seconds, he'd identified the problem: a loose connector in the heiress system causing electrical overheating and a safety shutdown. Without a word, ignoring Victoria's hysterical protests and the crowd's murmurs, James pulled a tool from his overall pocket. It was a fluid, practiced movement, that of a man who always carried the instruments of his craft. His fingers danced around the complex components with troubling familiarity. 30 seconds. That's all it took. A discreet click, a millimetric adjustment, and he closed the bonnet. With a hand gesture, he invited Victoria to restart. She hesitated, torn between anger and curiosity. Then, faced with this strange mechanic's silent insistence, she slipped into the cockpit and turned the key. The V8 awakened with a perfect roar, that mechanical symphony that made enthusiasts' hearts race. No smoke, no vibration. The McLaren purred like new. The crowd applauded spontaneously. The smartphones had captured everything: the heiress's arrogance, the mechanic's intervention, the mechanical miracle. Tomorrow, the video would be viral. Victoria emerged from the car, her mask of perfection cracked. This street mechanic had just accomplished in 30 seconds what McLaren technicians took hours to diagnose in their high-tech workshops. The humiliation was complete. That's when wounded pride took over. She needed to regain control, to transform this defeat into victory, even a false one. With that contemptuous smile that had made her reputation in boardrooms, that blend of condescension and refined cruelty, she approached James. "Impressive for a grease monkey," she drawled, savoring each poisoned syllable. "Tell me, do you often play the fool outside luxury hotels to impress tourists?" James calmly wiped his hands on a cloth from his pocket, impassive in the face of the attack. "Since you seem so talented," Victoria continued, raising her voice so everyone could hear, "I'll make you a proposition. If you can truly fix this car, I mean perfect it, not just this makeshift bodge, then I'll marry you." She laughed, a crystalline and cruel sound. It was a joke, obviously. The kind of public humiliation her class loved inflicting on the little people. The crowd laughed nervously, uncomfortable with such contempt. But James's reaction caught her off guard. Instead of blushing, stammering, or fleeing, he looked her straight in the eyes. An enigmatic smile played on his lips as he methodically put away his tool. "Deal accepted, Miss Pemberton," he said in a calm voice that carried surprisingly far. "But be warned, I always keep my promises. And you don't know who I really am." The tone was so assured, so devoid of servility, that Victoria shivered despite herself. How did he know her full name? She hadn't introduced herself, and that way of looking at her, as if he saw beyond the mask, beyond the armor of luxury and arrogance. How do you know my name?" she asked, destabilized. "Everyone knows the Pemberton heiress," James replied with a hint of irony, "especially when she makes the cover of Tatler 3 times a year." He leaned slightly, and she caught a surprising scent. Not just the expected motor oil, but something more subtle, more expensive. A men's cologne she vaguely recognized. "Your McLaren will have other problems," he added quietly, for her ears only. "The hybrid system is miscalibrated. Within 2 days maximum, you'll have a real breakdown. The McLaren technicians will tell you the whole system needs replacing. 3 months wait, minimum." He straightened, resuming a normal voice. "When that happens, you know where to find me. Sterling Motors, Brooks Mews, if you're serious about your proposition." With that, he turned on his heels and walked away calmly, ignoring the cameras, the questions, the commotion he left behind. His gait had something strangely noble about it. Straight back, square shoulders, an assurance that clashed with the image of a simple mechanic. Victoria got back into her McLaren, hands slightly trembling on the wheel. In the rearview mirror, she watched James disappear into the mews, swallowed by the garage's shadow. Something was off. His way of speaking, his confidence, this intimate knowledge of McLaren's. Who was this man, really? She drove off, the engine purring perfectly, but James's words echoed in her head. 2 days, maximum. How could he be so certain? The rest of the day passed in a blur. The meeting with the Japanese investors was a success. She excelled at these financial jousts, but her mind kept returning to that strange mechanic. That evening, in her Knightsbridge penthouse, with its panoramic view of Hyde Park, she launched searches. Sterling Motors had existed for 40 years. Solid but discreet reputation, loyal neighborhood clientele. The current owner, James Mitchell, had taken over 2 years ago. No social media presence, no interviews, no advertising. A ghost in the digital age? It was troubling. In her hyper-connected world where everyone cultivated their image like a precious garden, this total absence intrigued. Who was James Mitchell? A simple mechanic who got lucky? Or something more? 48 hours later, exactly as predicted, the McLaren showed new signs of weakness. First, a slight power loss during acceleration. Then misfires in the energy recovery system. Finally, the fatal red light and complete shutdown of hybrid mode. The McLaren technicians confirmed the diagnosis with apologetic expressions. Major KERS system problem requiring complete replacement. Parts to be specially ordered from Woking. Delay, 3 months minimum. Cost, $85,000. Sitting in the VIP lounge of the McLaren dealership, Victoria thought back to James's words. He'd predicted every detail with troubling precision. A crazy idea began to germinate. What if she tested him? Not for the marriage, obviously. The idea remained grotesque, but to see how far this strange mechanic's audacity would go. She took her phone and dictated a message to her assistant. Have the McLaren delivered to Sterling Motors, Brooks Mews, with this note: you have 1 week to keep your promise. If you succeed, we'll discuss your reward. VP. The die was cast. At the garage.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
James received the delivery with a smile that would have intrigued Victoria. He caressed the orange bonnet of the McLaren with unexpected tenderness, murmuring, "Hello, beauty. I've been expecting you." He pulled out his phone, a latest model that clashed with the simple mechanic image, and dialed an international number. The conversation was in perfect English, with a hint of Swedish accent. "It's me. Send the TX7 prototype parts." "Yes, all the parts. Complete configuration." "No, it's not for Koenigsegg. It's personal. Very personal." He hung up and looked at the McLaren again. In the garage's dim light, his eyes shone with a gleam Victoria would have found disturbing. Or exciting. Hard to say. Time for her to discover the truth, he murmured. The whole truth. 3 days of complete silence since the McLaren's delivery. The lack of news gnawed at Victoria, unaccustomed to being ignored. She decided to visit the garage, finding it closed in the middle of the day. A door ajar at the back let through classical music. Bach's Goldberg Variations, she recognized with astonishment. The workshop's interior stunned her. Far from the grimy garage she'd imagined, the place was immaculate, equipped with technology she'd only seen at McLaren's Woking headquarters. Her P1 sat center stage, completely dismantled, each part arranged with manic precision. James worked on the engine, totally absorbed. The glasses he wore gave him a different air, more intellectual. His movements had an artist's grace, not a simple mechanic's. Without looking up, he identified the piece and mentioned hearing her play it at the Pemberton Charity Gala of 2018. He'd been at the back of the hall. The revelation that he could have been present without her noticing, a waiter, an invisible technician, painfully highlighted her world's blindness, the bitterness in his voice, mixed with nostalgia. James then approached a workbench covered in documents. Patents, dozens of revolutionary patents, all in the name of J.A. Mitchell. The truth exploded. James Alexander Mitchell, aeronautical and automotive engineer, graduate of Cambridge and MIT, former R&D director at Koenigsegg, designer of her McLaren's hybrid system. Victoria's world tilted. This man in work overalls was an engineering genius. The authentic patents testified to revolutionary innovations. Why was he wasting his talent in this garage? The story James told was simple and heartbreaking. His father stricken with cancer, he'd left everything to return to London and care for him. This garage was the paternal legacy, where his father had taught him that a man who can repair can build anything. He'd been waiting since his death 2 years ago, for the right moment, the right person perhaps. The following hours were a technical and human revelation. James wasn't simply repairing, he was transforming. Each part was optimized with technologies he'd developed. His passion when speaking about mechanics infected Victoria, who forgot her $5,000 Stella McCartney dress on a dusty stool. The mention of his departure from Koenigsegg revealed a deep wound. A Swedish heiress fiancé had left him when he'd chosen his sick father over a brilliant future. A man preferring a shabby garage wasn't worthy of her. The pain still showed in his voice. When James asked if the challenge was serious, Victoria blushed, apologizing for the cruel joke. But he wasn't joking. Their gazes met. Charged with dangerous electricity Victoria had never felt in her sanitized world. Victoria's phone rang. Her father. An investor's dinner. The real world was catching up. Before leaving, in a spontaneous gesture, she invited him to tomorrow's dinner. She wanted to continue this conversation, explore this strange bond forming between them. Left alone, James caressed the McLaren's bonnet. Phase 2 of his plan was engaging. Time to see if Victoria was ready for the complete truth. The Savoy sparkled that evening, hosting the cream of London business for the Pemberton dinner. Victoria, dazzling in haute couture, watched the entrance nervously. James's appearance stunned her. The Savile Row dinner jacket had transformed the mechanic into a distinguished gentleman. But it was his natural ease in this world that impressed most. Lord Pemberton frowned at his daughter's companion, vaguely introduced as an automotive engineering consultant. The evening shifted when Takeshi Yamamoto, CEO of a major Japanese automotive giant, recognized James effusively. The exchange in perfect Japanese revealed the identity of the genius who revolutionized their hybrid systems. The entire table fell silent. Lord Pemberton's eyes widened. His daughter was dating the James Mitchell? The technical conversation that followed captivated the audience. James revealed himself as brilliant, polyglot, quoting Shakespeare and quantum physics with equal ease. With alcohol flowing, Lord Pemberton became cutting, questioning why a man of such caliber played at being a mechanic. The icy silence that followed was broken by James's calm but stinging response about humility, learned from his father, a value clearly not transmitted in the Pemberton household. James left with dignity after this verbal slap, leaving the assembly stunned. Victoria ran after him, her heels clicking on marble. She caught him in the garden, where he revealed the true reason for leaving Koenigsegg. The fiancé who'd rejected him for choosing his dying father over his career. Victoria's sudden vulnerability surprised him. She confessed to feeling in his workshop a peace unknown since forever, finding this golden world superficial and empty. Her proposition to give her a week to prove she was worth more than this rotten world touched James. They ran hand in hand towards the garage, abandoning the artificial world of the Savoy. In the modified McLaren launched on the empty M25, Victoria discovered the magical transformation James had wrought. The car was perfect, finally complete. Wind in her hair, her liberated laughter. Victoria embodied for James the true magic of this night. More than mechanics, it was this woman discovering her freedom that amazed him. Victoria kept her word spectacularly. From dawn, she revolutionized her existence, canceling meetings and galas to arrive at the garage in work clothes. James, touched and amused, initiated her into mechanics. Her delicate hands revealed surprising talent, quickly learning precise gestures. The third day marked a turning point. Mrs. Chen, the neighborhood cleaner, brought her old Ford Fiesta broken down without money for repairs. Victoria insisted on handling it herself. Under James's direction, she diagnosed and fixed the problem. The old lady's grateful smile was worth all the bonuses in the world. The fourth day brought the storm. Lord Pemberton burst in, furious about this masquerade. Victoria's declaration of resignation left him speechless. She was keeping her shares, but leaving operations for other projects. What followed was terrible. Threats, emotional blackmail, disinheritance. Victoria remained stoic, forbidding James to intervene. This was her fight. After her father's dramatic departure, she collapsed in James's arms, crying years of contained rage. Her declaration of finding herself rather than losing anything deeply touched James. The fifth day, she revealed her project, transforming her fortune into a foundation to train disadvantaged youth in precision mechanics. Excellence accessible to all, not just heirs. James's admiration grew for this woman he'd misjudged. The sixth day, he took her to a small pub in Bermondsey, where his father used to take him. They talked until dawn. Dreams, fears, hopes. Victoria spoke of her mother who died when she was 10, her emotional armor since. James talked of his inventions, his crazy projects, his desire to create truly sustainable cars. Victoria's proposition stunned him. Partnership 50-50. His genius and her resources to revolutionize the industry. The determination in her eyes left no doubt about her seriousness. The seventh day, James presented his gift. A white gold key set with diamonds for a unique prototype he'd built, waiting for someone worthy to drive it. Hope, his ultimate creation fusing luxury and performance, waited under a cover. The kiss they exchanged sealed more than a week of trials. Two destinies united. When James went down on one knee for his real marriage proposal, Victoria's yes rang like destiny. 6 months later, the London Motor Show witnessed a historic moment. The Mitchell Pemberton Motors stand presented Aurora, their first commercial creation. The contrast was their signature. Victoria in a sober suit explaining the business vision, James in overalls explaining innovations. Orders flooded in for these ecological and repairable luxury cars, revolutionizing the market. But true success was measured elsewhere. 50 young people training in their academy, workshops bringing hope to deprived areas. Lord Pemberton, present despite their estrangement, observed his daughter radiating new light. His apologies and blessing moved the assembly. The gesture of James putting his arm around Victoria's waist made him finally understand. The wedding at the garage transformed mixed worlds, aristocrats and mechanics, ministers and apprentices. Victoria arrived in hope, driven by Mrs. Chen. Her dress, created by a young designer from Tower Hamlets they supported, symbolized their philosophy. The vows remained simple but profound. Lord Pemberton's speech recognizing that James had offered his daughter what she'd been missing, purpose, passion, authenticity, drew tears. The apprentice's gift, a plaque reading, "Here, excellence has no price, it has heart," crowned the ceremony. 2 years later, the company was valued at $500 million. But in their office overlooking the main workshop, they remained the same. She in a suit, he in overalls. Their only regret was not finding each other sooner. Their 6-month-old daughter slept peacefully while they joked about a breakdown service on Bond Street for other McLarens in trouble. The framed photo of their meeting, haughty Victoria, James in overalls, the smoking McLaren, bore their motto, "Every breakdown hides an opportunity." They didn't yet know this philosophy would conquer the world. They just knew that together they could fix anything, even billionaires' hearts. 10 years after their explosive meeting on Bond Street, the Mitchell-Pemberton empire had become a global phenomenon. But the real miracle happened daily in their 100 training centers across Britain. That morning, the inauguration in Brixton gathered an astonishing crowd, where ministers and mechanics communed in the vision of accessible excellence. Emma, 8 years old, helped Daddy with adorable seriousness, questioning about Mummy's initial meanness. James's response about walls people build to protect themselves and finding the right key, like for a broken car, brought tears to Victoria's eyes. Lord Pemberton and Mrs. Chen cut the symbolic ribbon together. Victoria's speech telling their story made the assembly laugh and cry. Her declaration that their real McLaren was the 10,000 young people trained particularly touched Malik, ex-gang member turned best apprentice. The new project, autonomous cars for disabled people sold at cost, would make shareholders scream, but they hadn't built their empire for them. In their shared office, watching young people work with passion and Emma play without social distinction, Victoria felt finally whole. The weekly dinner at the Bermondsey pub united 3 reconciled generations. Lord Pemberton recognized their human empire infinitely surpassed his financial one. James's father, miraculously in remission, toasted those who'd seen beyond appearances. Returning home, they passed Claridge's, where an orange McLaren was parked exactly where it had been 10 years ago. Sign or confirmation that some meetings are written? In their simple Bermondsey home, the original McLaren key framed bore the inscription, "Sometimes an impossible challenge is all it takes to discover what matters." Emma slept, exhausted from her mechanics day. On the terrace, embraced facing glittering London, they contemplated their inner light, that flame lit one April day when a haughty heiress had challenged fate. And fate, embodied in a mechanic in overalls, had magnificently risen to the challenge. If this story touched you and made you believe in love beyond social barriers, leave a like. Share. Have you made a crazy bet that changed your life? Subscribe for more stories proving love transcends everything. Remember, a breakdown can be the start of your greatest adventure.